Yeah.
But then uh, we're coming off of a Grand Prix, a Saudi Arabia Grand Prix, which is it's been a madness. It feels like we were really kind of locked into that Grand Prix the whole weekend for reasons kind of outside of on the track stuff. I guess I'd love to get your thoughts on essentially what you thought of the situation that arose on Friday night. So for those who maybe don't know, I guess just as a quick rundown, during practice on Friday, there was a missile strike on, yeah,
Missile.
yeah, there was a missile strike on the Aramco site, 10 miles from the circuit. Obviously, it created a huge explosion. There was smoke. You could see that from the track. Long story short, F1 said the race was still going ahead. The drivers held their own meeting late at night, around half an hour after the decision was given, which lasted for about 3-4 hours, where it was clear that they didn't want to race, but they were then kind of persuaded to carry on. Denz, what are your thoughts, I guess, on that whole situation, and I guess just in general about racing in Saudi Arabia and everything that kind of brings up?
Great question, bro. And boy, here we go again, as in the great words of Carl Johnson from GTA. Here we go again, because to me, it shouldn't have taken place. It highlights that F1 is like an epitome of just, or the epitome of contradictions, which I'll come back to. And Sir Lewis Hamilton warned us about this 2 years ago when he said in 2020, cash is king. You have to look at the contradictions that are being and taking place here, because it was only a couple of weeks ago they refused to race in Russia, which obviously there's been an ongoing dispute and a war going on between them and Russia, we're fully aware of. However, they refused to cancel the race and in the middle of the epicenter of an ongoing conflict between Saudi Arabia and Yemen, as you rightly pointed out as well, with missiles 10 kilometers around the circuit. For context, the Nordschleife Nürburgring is longer and farther away from the missiles than the missiles themselves were from the track, which is nuts. And listen, you guys have pointed it out perfectly. Corporate greed in this thing, because I could just imagine Ross Brawn, the managing director, and Stefano Domenicali, the CEO of the Formula One group, going to the drivers' meeting and saying, boom, all right, you see us, yeah? Secured this fat bag from these promoters. Jeez, you see the millies, this racks on racks in the corner. We just secured our deal. So you see you, Lewis, Tota, you man, yeah? Yeah, speak for you, man, still. You guys just have to just soak it up, just take it in. Literally, if you see one or two fireworks or explosions, might just be fireworks, all calm. And I'm sure that they would have probably gaslighted the situation and tried to make it seem that it wasn't as serious as it was. And this is really sad. It shows that the whole commercial group has no regard for humanity and human life. It's P.O.P, profits over people, because at the end of the day, they endangered the lives of marshals, fans, drivers, teams. And it's not just the drivers and the mechanics, it's the engineers, it's the catering staff, it's the media teams, all of them. I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
As far as we know, at least, not one hair on their bodies have been hurt or touched as a result of this race that we took place. But yeah, they took a lot of unnecessary risks. And it's just, as I said before, an epitome of many contradictions that we've seen with the FIA and the whole circus over the last couple of years.
I told you it's fun to listen to.
Very, very, very. I'm going to insert some applause for that, because that was definitely correct. If my button works, we're going to insert it after. So, Tandy, Den's made a point about it being a circus. Like, for you, I know you text me you text me on Saturday saying this is wrong. You're not
what I said accurately. I think I said this.
Do you want me to read it out? Also, can you come closer to your microphone, please?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, could you bring your microphone closer to you, because you're gonna look like you are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, could you just bring.
Um,
Right, 2 seconds, Tandy. I am going to get your message up. Your message said,
uh-huh.
I think this whole thing at Jeddah is disgusting. Also, my mum just offered a Zoom subscription. And we are on Zoom right now. So the shout out Tandy's mum, one and only, absolute G. So yeah, it's disgusting. Why is it disgusting?
It's disgusting because you could see from the faces, you know, if anyone saw the fake pictures from the driver's secret little meeting, they looked distressed. They look absolutely like frightened, and you would be like, we are not monkeys to be put on show. Yes, we have signed up, but this is a humanity thing. But it's clear that this country does not give a fuck. This FIA does not give a fuck about humanity. Sorry, censor that out. And it's just a reflection of it. No one gives a fuck about the drivers. They've signed a contract that's like, it's like when you're in school and you're like, I don't want to play PE because, you know, I haven't got my boots, or it's freezing outside, it's raining. And they're like, the teacher's like, no, go out there, but 100 times worse because there's missiles raining from the fucking sky. So we do definitely need to start thinking about, well, we don't have to start thinking about it. It just reflects, as Den's just said, like the morals of Formula One in general, the lack thereof morals, and the lack thereof care for anybody apart from the money. We get an A-Rap money.
We are. Well, they are. And also, that song got cancelled, so let's not sing that song.
Yeah, that song got cancelled. But did Jeddah?
No, exactly. DJ Khaled saw the error of his ways. Stefano Domenicali clearly has not.
But we did. Are we still doing the Russian GP?
We're not. No, it got cancelled.
We're not. It got cancelled, didn't it?
Yeah, it got cancelled.
So we want to question the dynamics around them things. But, you know, we know what's going on, guys. We know what's going on.
The sport is fucked.
Basically.
I'm sick of, like, this sport is lurching from one madness to another. And it is just, someone said it, I think it was Curtis, big old Curtis Modric, editor of Autocar, Car Magazine. Car Magazine. He said Formula One is going to eat itself, and I could not agree more. Like,
Yum, yum, yum.
yum, 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 yum. Money. That's all they care about. And look, I keep saying this. I understand. 2020 and 2021 reduced revenues. There was hardly anyone at the races. COVID. They had to put on a show. All this, that, and the other. You know, they have to get that money back somehow.
But surely we've made it back by now with all them fucking expensive ass tickets.
Well, they would have. I actually got an email from Miami earlier, and I was like, oh, let me see how much that is. Not going. So very expensive. So all I would say is that I get it, but like for them to be chasing money on this level, and for them to be to just, you know, for them to just disregard safety in the name of a Formula One race. Like, you know, of course, you know, Toto's words say, you know, this is probably the safest place in Saudi Arabia right now. Not very classy, but also, you know, you can imagine that place was armed to the teeth. Like, they had obviously
incredibly distasteful.
It was distasteful. It wasn't the only distasteful thing that Toto said this weekend either. I think there's a whole conversation to be had around how we discuss conflict in countries that are not European, and I think we've seen that with Ukraine. And I guess Den's how much of a stain on, I guess, the reputation of F1 is this? I guess, does it really affect them? They've done it now, nothing happened, they race there. Do you think there'll be any lasting consequences, or is this just a day in the life of the sport?
Great question there, bro. And to be honest, it depends how you look at it. I think from the short term, no, these guys don't care. They're very thankful that nothing actually happened, thank God. And they're able to just run off into the distance with the bag they just secured, no doubt. But definitely in the long term events of the sport, it absolutely leaves a huge blemish. Because going back to my other kind of statement, F1 being the epitome of contradictions, you saw so many with this race. Like, I've touched on the fact that Liberty Media have said that, they're going to campaign for this whole no war like thing that they had, which you saw the drivers clearly protesting and campaigning for in Bahrain. And then you go to a country with an ongoing conflict. Then cool, you got FOM, the Formula One management, saying we race as one. And then in Drive to Survive, it's become the race against one, when it was everybody biased against Mercedes and Lewis. And then the worst one, the people I really have to stick it onto, as the FIA, because they had a howler this weekend, and short term and long term, because I wasn't quite sure if you guys were following the F2. There was an incident where a car had a really heavy crash. I think it was Logan Sargent, American F2 driver. His car stranded on the side of the wall. And rather than red flagging the race completely, they brought two heavy duty JCB extractors on the circuit, whilst they've still got marshals and cars driving around, like a la Jules Bianchi, which is nuts to me. You think that these people would have learned. And it doesn't stop there either. Mick had the mother who accidents on Saturday. And, I laugh from a place of discomfort, because it literally could have just happened like that. And again,
like a blip.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just it highlights some of the faults with this. They were in such a hurry to secure the bag with this venue, with the promoters, that they've compromised on certain basic fundamental track features. Like, this track lacks a lot of runoff areas, so it would link back to why those heavy duty extractors were on the circuit, because there was no way that they could extract the car through an escape road. And again, we saw the same thing happen on the Sunday when Ricardo broke down. And I'm sure we'll touch on this later on in the podcast. But you saw Lewis going past, and everyone was saying, "Oh, why didn't Lewis box?" But as Lewis was driving by, if you look at the onboard of his car, you can see Ricardo walking, or like getting out of the cockpit of the McLaren on the race circuit, with cars still going over speeds of excess of 40 or 50 miles an hour. And then Marshall's pushing a car down a pit lane, when you have the likes of Kevin Magnussen and Hulkenberg pitting because the FIA didn't react in time and close the pit lane entry too. It's bonkers. It's so bizarre, but it just highlights all of these flaws that we've mentioned. And soon it is going to add up, and there's only so many times you can escape fate.
Yeah, 100%. There's so many things, and I think you're right. We will get to the Hamilton thing later, because I think there's an argument there about the team, Hamilton, FIA, between the three of them. Why didn't he come into the pits? And whatever. There's been a lot of debate about that. But I guess, Tandy, before we move on from this, for me, you know what someone said in the fucking live show the other day, and it really pissed me off, because they're right. But when someone reads you for filth, and you're like, why did you have to read me like that? They said that I did the pregnant pause thing like Will Buxton, and now I notice myself doing it.
Yeah, but do you know what? I'd say that's the thing I enjoy most about listening to the podcast, because when you do the pregnant pause, yours isn't as underwhelming as Will Buxton's. Yours is always a great thing that's got to come out. That's why I always, if you look at me in the camera, I'm always like, what is he going to say?
We could see that from when I was trying to praise Lewis Hamilton, and I was like, Lewis, I love you. And then your eyes went, what's he about to say? Anyway, let's not talk about that. So what I was going to ask was, fans of the sport who are one of the things about Formula One, right, is that they're saying that we need to go to these places, not need to, but we go to these places to shine a light on what is happening in these areas, right, and to spread the gospel of sport, essentially, and how he did that part. He didn't say, but essentially, it is like, you know, we're taking ourselves.
What?
Pardon?
Rich, the hierarchy, the pyramid. Is that
Well,
what we're trying to shine a light on? Because I'm not seeing anything here. All I'm seeing is money.
well, yeah. So, you know, there's the obvious corruption. But I
Daniel,
guess
what? Daniel Ricciardo can't even finish an interview without even giving an explanation of what he thinks about. What are you shining a light on? Your own lies. Surely you don't believe your own lies. Surely not.
But Nyasha, just to add to that point as well, it vexes me. It vexes me so hard because it's not like somebody put a gun to these people's head and said you have to do the immoral, corrupt, bad mind thing. You know, there are more sustainable things they could do for the best of F1. You know, you've got an emerging market in one of the biggest continents in the world, Africa. You've got an existing circuit that has raced Formula One in the past. Shout out to all my South Africans because they're amazing too.
Shout out to all our South African fans. We love you. We're coming. We're coming.
Literally. But again, you know, just to kind of highlight that point, you've got GT3 that races there regularly. You've got World Endurance Championships that race there regularly. Why? Why is it that when it came to Zandvoort, they spent millions, if not billions, redeveloping the circuit? And they did the same with Imola too. But then when it's countries that are outside of Europe or, you know, the affluent ones of such in the big circle, how is it when it comes to Kyalami? They can't invest and upgrade the license to make it suitable for these modern day Formula One cars. It's an absolute farce.
They don't have oil money. Big oil money.
That Nikita Mazepin flex. That
oil money. I mean, sorry,
it's crazy.
We have, you know, platinum, a little bit of, you know, we have stones. Sorry.
Well, well, no, for sure. And look, you're both not wrong. Devil's advocate. I hate being that guy. Devil's advocate. People will say, oh, look, we're not going to listen to them bad mind cunts that are saying, is the C word? I can't say the C word. Is that bad?
I'm just surprised it came out your mouth.
Yeah, but no, because what I'm about to say is something bad that they say. Like, but maybe I'll beep that. But so we can't listen. You know, the bad man. They're like, you know, Africans wouldn't be able to afford to go anyway. Africans, like these Africans. There's a lot of disparaging remarks about Africa. And especially, obviously, about South Africa. A lot of people don't know, like, obviously, I've got a South African family. I know, Short Andy, you've got a South African family. Like, we are actually part South African. So it's very offensive. It's extra offensive to us when we hear, like, that side of things. Anyway, it should be offensive to anyone because the idea that a country which hosted a whole World Cup couldn't host a Formula One race, given the right circumstances, is ridiculous. Anyway, some people might say that it needs investment, like government investment, private investment, essentially backing to make it happen or to pay the race fee. You know, the Saudi Arabian countries are paying 45, 55 million for the races. This is before any track. Right, so I'm
sure if we were to look through them books, there's something there that's not adding up about what would.
You stopped talking. I was like, is the mic on?
I'm pretty sure if we look through the books of the business that's being done with the Saudi Arabians and certain European countries, some numbers aren't adding up. Certain investors have done something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is the thing. Yeah. Where is that money coming from? And also, don't keep talking about a race in South Africa and have promoters from South Africa saying we're ready to go. Like, to upgrade, to get us to grade 1, the upgrades needed are minor. Like, for us, like, all we need is to know that there's going to be a Grand Prix, and then we can make those upgrades in the same way that was it Saudi Arabia that needed to know there was going to be a Grand Prix, and then they just built the circuit. Was it that or Qatar? I can't remember which circuit was basically built last minute last season. But you know, Surely as a business, if it means so much about going to Africa, you would enable that process. You would be working together with Kyle Army to ensure that they got the backing they deserved. You would be doing as good a price as you would give to Monaco. I think Monaco pays £15 million per season for their right to host the Grand Prix. Of course, there's history there, but
I bet they do.
well, yeah, exactly. So, there's an opportunity to create or to cultivate an entire market there. It would be historic, and you would be. Then this is the thing. F1 is, they're still old white men doing the business, and with that becomes the kind of mindset and the thinking instead of forward thinking action. Look, Drive to Survive wouldn't have happened the way it was if Mercedes signed up and Red Bull signed up. It would have been a standard end of year review of just on track. The only reason they started putting in stories is because they had to fill time, because the two biggest teams, Ferrari and Mercedes, didn't sign up, and then by accident they stumbled across this keeping up with the Hornets platform, and that's like grown the fucking sport. But they didn't think to do that. They stumbled across it. So the good things that happened in Formula One, some of them are an accident. They're not even meant to be. The people who are in charge are clearly clueless, because we have in situations where you are not going to Russia because there's war, but we'll go to Jeddah. There's a strike at the track, near the track, but this is the safest place to be. It just, no war campaign, but, we're not, obviously we're going to stay in this war region. It just doesn't make sense. It's not for anyone of colour's interest, really, this sport, and we always have to fight against it rather than feeling embraced by it, and it's really fucking annoying. And this weekend really highlighted that. But we move.
Gunshot yourself. That was a nice speech. I liked it.